December 20th, 1941, Taungoo Airfield, Burma. The air is thick enough to drink, a suffocating blanket of heat and damp earth. For Second Lieutenant Jack Newkirk of the American Volunteer Group, it smells of aviation fuel, rotting vegetation, and fear. He leans against a stack of ammunition crates, watching the ground crew wrestle with the Allison V-1710 engine of his No. 2 plane. It's a Curtiss P-40B Tomahawk, a brute of an aircraft, heavy, squat, with none of the delicate grace of the Spitfires he'd seen in magazines. The press back home called them Warhawks. Here, the pilots have other names for it. Most are not complimentary. A voice, dry and weathered as old leather, cuts through the drone of insects. "She's not a ballerina, son. Don't try to make her dance." Colonel Claire Lee Chenault stands a few feet away, his face a mask of deep-set wrinkles, his eyes missing nothing. He doesn't look at Newkirk, but at the P-40. Reporters call this a pursuit ship. They're wrong. It's a shotgun. You point it, you shoot, and you get the hell out of the way before the other fellow knows what hit him. Newkirk straightens up. "Yes, sir." The rumors followed them all the way across the Pacific. The P-40 can't turn. It can't climb. The Japanese have a fighter, the Nakajima Ki-27, that can run circles around it. The British pilots up the road, flying Brewster Buffaloes, mock the P-40. They call it an iron pig. You hear the whispers in the mess tent. You see the doubt in the eyes of young men thousands of miles from home, about to fight a war with a plane nobody seems to want. Chenault seems to read his mind. "You've been training for 2 months. You've practiced my tactics. What have I told you is this aircraft's greatest strength?" Newkirk hesitates for a second. "Speed, sir, in a dive." "Exactly," Chenault grunts, finally turning his gaze on the young pilot. "Gravity is your best friend. The Mitsubishi Zero and the Nakajima Nate are lightweight acrobats made of paper and prayers. They can climb to the angels and turn on a rupee. If you try to follow them, you will die. You will climb above your enemy, you will pick your target, and you will dive. The P-40 picks up speed like a falling anvil. Your guns, 250s in the nose, 430s in the wings, will tear them apart. After your pass, you do not pull up and dogfight. You extend. You use that speed to get clear, then you climb again and do it all over. It's the closest thing to a sure thing in this business." The logic is sound. It's a predator's doctrine, the way a hawk hunts. But it goes against every instinct of a fighter pilot, every lesson learned back in flight school about getting on an enemy's 6 o'clock. It feels like cowardice, like a refusal to engage in a true duel. The ground crew chief gives a thumbs up. The Allison engine coughs, sputters, and then catches with a Dutch-shaking roar that scatters birds from the nearby jungle canopy. The sound is raw, mechanical, a promise of violence. Later that day, the air raid siren begins its mournful, rising shriek. The call comes crackling over the field radio. "Bandits, 20 plus, inbound from the east, scramble, scramble." The lazy heat of the afternoon is shattered. Newkirk sprints to his cockpit, the parachute straps digging into his shoulders. As he settles into the seat, the smell of oil, sweat, and metal fills his nostrils. He can see the shark's mouth painted on the engine cowling, a fearsome grin copied from a magazine photo of an RAF Tomahawk squadron in North Africa. It's a bluff, a piece of psychological warfare. He hopes it's more convincing than he feels. Lined up on the dusty runway with his squadron, the Adam and Eves, he pushes the throttle forward. The P-40 lurches, it rattles, it feels less like it's flying and more like it's clawing its way off the ground through sheer brute force. As they climb sluggishly into the hazy sky, he scans the horizon. And then he sees them, a cluster of small silver specks glinting in the sun. Japanese bombers escorted by fighters. His heart hammers against his ribs. The radio crackles with the voice of squadron leader Robert Neal. "Hello, boys. Let's go to work. Remember the lesson. Altitude is ammunition. Spend it wisely." Newkirk grips the stick. He is no longer a student. The lecture is over.
August 3rd, 1942. A desolate stretch of desert sky near Al Alamein, Egypt. Oberlieutenant Hans-Joachim Marseille banks his Messerschmitt Bf 109 F4 Trop, a masterpiece of German engineering, painted in the mottled tan and olive of the Afrika Korps. From 15,000 feet, the world below is a featureless ocean of sand, heat, and death. He is the undisputed king of this domain, the Stern from Africa, the Star of Africa. With over 100 aerial victories, he is an artist, and the sky is his canvas. His aircraft, Yellow 14, feels like an extension of his own body. It is light, lethally responsive, and climbs like a homesick angel. His wingman, Lieutenant Rainer Putkin, calls out over the radio, 9 o'clock low, Jockin. Looks like kitty hawks, maybe a dozen. Marseille squints, his eyes tracing the distant formation. P-40 kitty hawks, the American version of the tomahawk flown by the British and South Africans he has been shooting down for months. He'd heard the Americans had arrived, the 57th Fighter Group, green pilots in a second-rate machine. It is to him an object of pity and contempt. The iron sled, Marseille says, a slight laugh in his voice. They send these boys out in coffins. He has studied the aircraft. Poor roll rate at high speed, a mediocre supercharger that choked the Allison engine of power above 12,000 feet. It was heavy, sluggish, a perfect victim. His technique is simple and beautiful. He dives from a high angle, a deflection shot from the side, aiming just ahead of the cockpit. The 20mm cannon in his propeller hub will detonate the pilot in the engine in a single explosive instant. He rarely needs more than a few shells. The Americans are flying a clumsy defensive formation, a Lufberry circle. It's what pilots do when they are scared, when they know they are outclassed. Each plane protects the tail of the one in front. It is a circle of victims waiting for the slaughter. Rainer, stay high. I'm going down to say hello. Marseille pushes the stick forward, and the 109 accelerates effortlessly. The whine of the Daimler-Benz engine rises in pitch. This is the moment he lives for, the geometry of the attack, the cold calculation of speed, angle, and distance. He picks his target, a P-40 on the far side of the circle, its American star insignia clearly visible. You can almost feel the pilot's tension, a young man staring out at the empty sky, praying he isn't the one chosen. Marseille closes the distance with breathtaking speed. 400 meters, 300. He can see the rivets on the Kitty Hawk's fuselage. The American pilot hasn't seen him. He never sees them. Marseille's thumb hovers over the firing button. Suddenly, his headset crackles, not from his wingman, but from his Geschwaderkommodor on the ground, Edouard Newman, listening in. Jockin, be careful. We've heard reports from the British. They are using new tactics. They refuse to turn. Marseille almost scoffs. Refuse to turn. A fighter pilot who refuses to fight? It is an admission of inferiority. He ignores the warning. The P-40 fills his gun sight. He leads the target, a gentle pressure on the rudder pedals to correct his aim. But just as his finger tightens on the trigger, the entire American formation does something unexpected, something illogical. They break, but not towards him. They nose down, all 12 of them, diving for the desert floor. They aren't scattering in panic. It's a coordinated, disciplined maneuver. Marseille is left suspended in the empty sky, his perfect attack vector ruined. He curses in frustration and peels off to follow them down. The chase is on. Now they are in his world. He is faster, more agile. He will catch the straggler. He pushes his own throttle to the firewall, the 109 screaming in pursuit. Below him, the P-40s level out, just a few hundred feet above the sand, their engines roaring. They are fast down here, surprisingly so. The shimmering heat waves rising from the desert floor make aiming difficult. This is not the clean, precise aerial duel he prefers. This is ugly, brutish work, close to the ground. The Americans are not playing by the rules. They are changing the game, dragging his rapier down into a knife fight in the mud. And for the first time, a flicker of irritation, a hint of doubt, crosses the mind of the master.
October 9th, 1942. A makeshift briefing room at Landing Ground 175, Egypt. The tent flaps do little to keep out the fine talcum powder stand that gets into everything, your food, your water, your teeth. Major Robert L. Scott, commanding officer of the 64th Fighter Squadron, stands before a chalkboard. His pilots, part of the 57th Fighter Group, are slumped on wooden benches. They are young, tired, and losing confidence. In the past weeks, they've lost too many men to the aces of Jagdgeschwader 27. They had arrived in the desert eager to prove themselves, only to discover their P-40 Warhawks were no match for the Messerschmitts in a classic turning dogfight. Morale is dangerously low. "All right, listen up," Scott says, his voice cutting through the quiet despair. "Everything you learned in flight school, I want you to forget it. We are not going to fight the 109 on its terms, ever again. You try to waltz with Marseille, and he'll kill you before the music starts. From now on, we fight like Chennault's boys in China." He picks up a piece of chalk. "The P-40 is a brick, but if you throw a brick off a tall enough building, it hits damn hard." He draws 2 sets of X's on the board, one high, one low. We fly as 2 elements, a bait flight and a top cover. The bait goes in low, you look vulnerable, you invite them to a party. The top cover stays high, 5,000 feet above, hiding in the sun. When Jerry dives on the bait, he'll be focused, he'll have target fixation. He will never see the top cover coming down on his tail. He taps the board for emphasis. This is not a duel, this is an ambush. You make one pass. One. You use your 650 caliber guns. You fire a 3-second burst and you dive away. You use your speed to escape. No second chances, no heroic turns. We hit, we run, and we live to do it again tomorrow. Are there any questions? A pilot in the front row, barely 20 years old, speaks up. Sir, what if they don't take the bait? Scott gives a grim smile. They're Luftwaffe fighter pilots. Their entire religion is built on arrogance. Trust me, they'll take the bait. 2 hours later, you are Lieutenant Frank O'Brien, flying top cover at 18,000 feet. The sun is a blinding white disk at your 2 o'clock, and you use it, keeping your 4-ship flight position so anyone below would have to stare directly into it to see you. Your throat is dry. Your hands, slick with sweat inside your leather gloves, feel welded to the stick and throttle. Far below, you can see Captain Ken Stumpy Wilson's flight of 4 P-40s, the bait, droning along at 10,000 feet. They look impossibly small, like decoys in a vast sandy pond. The wait is agonizing. Minutes stretch into an eternity. You scan the sky, your neck aching, your eyes burning from the glare. Just as you begin to think the sky is empty, a voice crackles in your ears. It's Wilson. Tally-ho, bogeys, 6 o'clock high. Looks like the whole damn circus is here. My stomach clenches. I follow Wilson's gaze and see them. 8 BF-109s, diving out of the stratosphere like falcons, sunlight glinting off their canopies. They are beautiful and terrifying. They are falling directly into the trap. Their target is Wilson's flight. They haven't seen you. They haven't even looked. Major Scott was right. Arrogance. Top cover, stand by. Your flight leader, Captain Grice, says, his voice eerily calm. Let them commit. Wait for it. I watch the German fighters grow larger, their predatory shapes becoming clear. I can feel the potential energy stored in my own aircraft, the immense weight of the P-40 straining to be released. Okay, Vipers, let's go get him. Tally-ho. Grice rolls his Warhawk over and plunges downwards. You follow instantly. The world tilts, the blue sky replaced by the brown earth. The nose of your P-40 drops, and the acceleration is brutal, pushing you hard into your seat. The altimeter unwinds like a broken clock. 17,000 feet, 16,000. The wind screams past the canopy, a rising shriek of fury. Below, the 109s are just opening fire on Wilson's flight, their tracer rounds zipping past the American planes. They are completely unaware of the 8 tons of American steel and firepower hurtling towards them from above. You pick your target, the last Messerschmitt in the German formation. He is lining up a shot, concentrating, a master craftsman at work, oblivious to the hammer about to fall on his head.
The German pilot in your gun sight is Lieutenant Kurt Geisler, a young ace with 7 kills to his name. He is focused, his entire being narrowed down to the P-40 ahead of him. To him, this is textbook, a superior pilot in a superior machine, dispatching another clumsy Allied fighter. The desert air is clear, the shot is perfect. He is about to press the trigger when his world erupts. For you, Lieutenant O'Brien, time seems to slow down. Your P-40 is now a guided missile, traveling at over 400 miles per hour. The Messerschmitt ahead swells to fill your entire windscreen. You don't aim at the plane. You aim at a point in the sky where the plane will be in 1 second. You squeeze the trigger on the control stick. The entire airframe of the Warhawk shudders violently as 6.50 caliber machine guns unleash hell. It's not the neat stitching of a rifle, it's the roar of a buzzsaw tearing through metal. A stream of tracers, like fiery telephone poles, reaches out and touches the 109's right wing root. For Geisler, there is no warning. One moment, he is the hunter. The next, his cockpit is filled with the deafening sound of cannon shells punching through his wing. His instrument panel shatters. A spray of hydraulic fluid covers his canopy. His plane snaps into a violent, uncontrollable roll. He catches a fleeting glimpse of a shark-mouthed monster flashing past him, so close he could almost touch it. It doesn't stay to fight. It just continues its dive, vanishing towards the desert floor. Shock turns to terror. He's been hit by a P-40 from a direction he never thought to check. Your flight screams through the German formation, a whirlwind of concentrated violence. The effect is devastating. The Germans, caught completely by surprise, break in every direction. The perfect, arrogant dive of GG-27 dissolves into chaos. Another 109, hit by your wingman, trails a thick plume of black smoke. Its pilot bails out, a tiny figure tumbling against the vast blue sky. Captain Grice's voice is sharp on the radio. Vipers, break off. I repeat, break off and extend. Do not follow them up. You obey instantly, pushing your nose down further, leveling out just a few hundred feet above the sand. The air down here is hot and thick, the turbulence trying to rip the wings off.
But the P-40 is built for this. It's a rock. Your engine, which labored at high altitude, now feels powerful and responsive. You glance back. The remaining 109s are trying to regroup far above you, but they don't follow you down. They know that at this low altitude, the P-40's ruggedness and firepower make it a far more dangerous opponent. The game has changed. Up high, they are wolves. Down low, you are the alligator. The tactic works better than anyone dared hope. By the spring of 1943, the P-40s of the 57th and 79th Fighter Groups have become the scourge of the low-level air war. They escort Pomers, strafe enemy columns, and most importantly, they hunt the hunters. German pilots, once supremely confident, now approach every engagement with caution. They add a new rule to their briefings. Before diving, check your 6. Then check it again and check the sun. They learn to fear the shark's grin. On April 18, 1943, the doctrine reaches its terrifying apex. Over the Gulf of Tunis, a massive formation of over 100 German Junkers Ju-52 transport planes, escorted by Messerschmitts and Mach-E C-202s, attempts a desperate aerial resupply of the trapped Afrika Korps. They are met by a swarm of Allied fighters. Among them are the P-40 Warhawks of the 57th Fighter Group. What follows is not a battle, it's a massacre. The Warhawks don't bother with the escorts. They dive straight through them, ignoring the fighters, and tear into the slow, lumbering transports. The sky fills with fireballs and parachutes. The Palm Sunday massacre cost the Luftwaffe nearly 60 transports and over a dozen fighters. The Warhawk, the mocked Iron Pig, has become a butcher. The German aces are no longer laughing. They are now the ones being ambushed, hunted, and dropped from the sky.
Late November 1943, a windswept airfield near Foggia, Italy. Captain Frank O'Brien, now a veteran with 5 swastikas painted below his cockpit, runs a hand over the scarred fuselage of his P-40L. The shark mouth is faded and chipped, the olive drab paint scoured by sand and sun. This machine, Desert Shark 4, has brought him home through situations that should have killed him. It has absorbed 20mm cannon shells that would have disintegrated a Spitfire, and limped back on a sputtering engine that had no right to keep running. He still curses its climb rate. He still feels a pang of envy when he sees the new P-51 Mustangs arriving in the theater. But he feels a deep, grudging respect for the old Warhawk. It's not a lover, it's a bodyguard. The nature of the war has changed. The Afrika Korps is gone. The Allies are fighting their way up the boot of Italy. The P-40 is no longer a frontline air superiority fighter, but it has found its true calling as a fighter bomber, a Jabo. Strapped with a 500-pound bomb under its belly, it has become the terror of German supply lines, bridges, and troop concentrations. The dive and zoom tactic used against fighters now works just as well against targets on the ground. The plane's stability and ruggedness make it a perfect platform for low-level attack. A new replacement pilot, fresh from the States, watches him. Is it true, Captain, what they said about this plane in North Africa? O'Brien turns, seeing the familiar look of doubt he himself once wore. Is what true? He asks. That it's a dog, the young lieutenant says quietly. That it can't turn with a 109. O'Brien allows a small smile. It can't, he says simply. And if you try, you'll die. But let me tell you something else it can't do. It can't fall apart in a 500-mile-an-hour dive. It can't be knocked out of the sky by a few lucky machine gun rounds. And it can't be outrun by a 109 down on the deck. You don't dance with this plane. You use it like a club. Find the highest hill you can and swing it as hard as you can on your way down. It'll do the rest. He thinks back to a fight a month ago. A lone Bf-109G, a Gustav, flown by some hotshot new Oberlieutenant, had tried to jump his flight near a German rail yard they were about to attack. The German was good, very good, but he was also arrogant. He tried to engage them in a turning fight up high. O'Brien and his squadron refused the invitation. Instead, they split, forcing the 109 to pick one. When it did, the other 2 P-40s rolled over and dove from opposite sides. It was an impossible situation for the German pilot. He was trapped in a 3-dimensional pincer. He evaded the first pass, but in doing so, he flew directly into the path of O'Brien's wingman, who hammered him with a full deflection shot. The Gustav's engine exploded, and it cartwheeled into the Italian countryside. It was an ugly, brutal, and profoundly effective kill. It was P-40 fighting. The legacy of the Warhawk was never about elegance. It was about availability, toughness, and tactics born of desperation. In the jungles of Burma, Claire Chennault from Flying Tigers had written the first chapter, proving that a supposedly inferior machine, used correctly, could decimate a numerically and technologically superior foe. In the deserts of North Africa, American pilots had to learn that lesson all over again, paying for it in blood. They learned to stop mocking their own aircraft and instead force the enemy to respect it. The
The Luftwaffe asses who initially dismissed the P-40 as an easy kill learned to fear its shadow, to dread the glint of sun from high above, and to listen for the scream of an Allison engine in a full-power dive. The P-40 was the blunt instrument that held the line. It was the plane that taught a generation of overconfident Axis asses a hard lesson in humility, one devastating high-speed pass at a time. It may have been an iron pig, but in the hands of pilots who understood its savage nature, it learned how to fly, and it learned how to hunt.